Welcome to The Explainer. So, you know how every life is a story, right? But what if, at the very end, that story doesn't just end? What if it shatters into a million tiny pieces? So we start right at the finish line. We're in a rented hospital bed, smack in the middle of a living room, inside the mind of a man named George Crosby, just as his world and his life begins to come apart at the seams.
Think about this. The very house he literally built with his own two hands starts to deconstruct itself around him. The plaster, the windows, the floorboards he laid, it's all failing. His entire reality is collapsing, floor by floor, until he's basically buried under the rubble of his own life.
I mean, this isn't just someone passing away. It is the spectacular collapse of a private universe, the total unmaking of a world. And that raises a really deep question about what a life actually is at its very end. Paul Harding's novel Tinkers suggests our memory works way differently, especially in those final moments. It is definitely not a film reel playing from start to finish. Nope, it's something much more chaotic and honestly, kind of beautiful.
And this gets us to the core idea of the whole book. George's life isn't remembered in a straight line. It's more like this swirling collection of moments. Imagine a mosaic where all the tiles are just spinning and reforming into new pictures, all on their own, completely outside of his control. The book gives us this kind of countdown, which helps us stay grounded while George's mind is just floating through time. And at the heart of all these memories are two people, him and his father.
Right, so to really get George and why he was so obsessed with order, you've got to look at his dad, Howard. Their lives and their jobs were these two sides of the same coin, almost like a strange, haunting reflection of each other.
I mean, these guys were completely defined by what they did for a living. You had Howard, the tinker, who was always out in the wild, dealing with the chaos of nature. And then you had George, the horologist, that's a clockmaker, who literally hid away in his workshop to put chaos back in its box.
Howard's life, it was just raw. It was tied to the land, to the seasons, to whatever random thing the folks in the backwoods of Maine needed. He was part salesman, sure, but also kind of like a poet, patching up the humble everyday things that held a person's life together. And then there's George, total opposite. He spends his golden years tucked away in his quiet basement workshop, his little sanctuary of perfect order. And get this, he wasn't just fixing clocks. The book says he was banishing the imps of disorder, putting his name on the long list of craftsmen who fought chaos with logic. But here's the thing. For all their work trying to fix and order the world around them, both of them were haunted by a type of chaos they couldn't do a thing about. A disorder that didn't come from a broken pot or a busted clock. It came from inside. Which brings us to this terrifying, almost cosmic experience at the center of Howard's life. The book doesn't just call his epilepsy a medical condition. It asks this incredible question. What is it like to be full of lightning? And Harding's description here, it is absolutely breathtaking. A seizure isn't about being empty or absent. It's the complete opposite. It's being overwhelmed. Howard is literally being fed a diet of lightning, getting this direct, raw connection to the universe's energy. Just wild. And this is such a brilliant way to explain the parallel the book is drawing. Think about it. Both dying and having a seizure can make you lose your sense of self, but they come from opposite directions. One is being drained away to nothing, and the other is being totally flooded into nothingness. So while George is down in his workshop, carefully building this life of pure reason and order, this violent memory of his father's chaos is like a ghost in the machine. It's the one piece of disorder he could never, ever banish. Which brings us right back to where we started, to George's final moments, where all that order he fought so hard to create finally just lets go. And the pieces of his own life, his own mosaic, start to fade out. The ticking, the one constant, comforting sound that filled his entire house, his entire life, suddenly goes quiet. He had surrounded himself with all these little mechanical heartbeats, right? And when they all stop together in that deafening silence, that's when he knows his own time is up. And he starts thinking about his legacy, the story of his life. And he just sees it dissolving,
getting fuzzier with every new generation. He knows he's just going to become a story, a collection of rumors, hazy and half forgotten.
And then, even further down the line, he sees himself fading away completely. Not even a rumor. He'll just be a trace element, a faint shade of a color in the lives of people who will never even know his name. It's such a profound meditation on how we all eventually just disappear.
So, in the end, after everything, after all the years, all the scattered memories, all the swirling tiles of that mosaic, it all comes down to one single powerful memory. The moment his father, Howard, who'd been gone for 27 years, just showed up on his doorstep. The whole story comes full circle.
And the novel leaves us with this final, kind of mind-bending thought. It turns the whole story back on the narrator and, well, back on us. We're the ones left behind to do the remembering, right? We're the ones trying to piece together the mosaic of a life that's no longer there. It suggests that the act of remembering says just as much about the rememberer as it does about the one being remembered.